Hi, I'm Allie. Join me as I work with tubelet beads, creating a right angle weave design for this diamond tubelet bracelet. Remember, if you need any supplies, go ahead and look below the video. We'll put links there to the products on our website. Gather up your materials on your bead on it board and let's get ready to get started. So to get started on this diamond tubelet bracelet, we are going to be starting with the base on each component, adding the top on each component, and then doing our connection points, once again, starting with the bottom, adding the top, and locking them together. You can do one simply by itself in order to make a pair of earrings, or continue on like I am for the whole bracelet. I'm going to be using for my piece here two colors of tubelet beads, 180 and 111 seed bead. Building from the outside in, the first thing I'm going to do, because I'll attach my Potomax clasp after, is I'm going to put a stop bead onto the bottom of my size 6 white dragon thread, leaving enough room at the end that I can go back and add that clasp. To put the stop bead, I'm going to sew through that bead once and then twice, and you'll notice I'm using a bright bead that is not part of my project, so that way I know it comes off as I'm working. Like I said, we're going to start out with the bottom of the bracelet. This is going to begin with a pattern of 11, 8, 11, followed by my darker color of my tubelet, and then a repeat of that seed bead pattern. We're making a diamond, so we're going to be using 4 of these. Go ahead and add all of that onto your thread and needle. And then once you get your 4th tubelet in there, go ahead and push it all down next to the stop bead. So you now have 4 tubelets on there with that combination of 11, 8, 11, followed by the tubelet. We're going to make this into our diamond shape by taking our needle, starting at our stop bead but not sewing through it, and sew through the 11, 8, 11, and then through again the next tubelet, 11, 8, 11, through the next tubelet, and come out after the 11 after the second tubelet. Giving a nice tight pull, you can see that gets my first little diamond section. From here, we're going to build our second level onto our bracelet. That is going to consist of 111, my lighter color of my tubelet, and one more 11. Going backwards, we're going to sew back through the last 11, tubelet, 11 that our thread is coming out of. So we're sewing back through 11, tubelet 11, and then bring our thread out. Our thread will exit then where it was coming out before we added those beads. Give a nice tight pull, and then twist your project around, going through the next 8, 11, tubelet 11, and then having your needle exit. Once again, having that needle exit, we're going to build our next tubelet. 11, tubelet, 11. Once again, so it sits on top of the previous tubelet, go back through the 11, the tubelet, and the 11 that your thread is coming out of. I've done this 2 times. We're going to circle around and do it 2 more times so that it sits right above every one of my beginner tubelets, a second grouping of 11, tubelet, 11. So as you add your last tubelet sitting over top of the tubelet before, you're going to get ready now to come up and bring that lighter tubelet toward the front, making that 2-layered version. To do so, go through the 11 and the tubelet that you just added. So we added the 11, the tubelet, the 11, we sewed back through the 11 and tubelet and 11 below it, and now we're sewing through the 11 and coming out through the tubelet bead. As you come out the tubelet bead, it kind of anchors the design, so just give it a nice tight pull. From here, we are going to connect to all of our second layer of our tubelets, which is going to bend them in towards the middle. In between each tubelet, we're going to pick up one 11 seed bead and then progress to the next tubelet of the same color. Pick up another 11 and sew through the next tubelet. Next 11. So you're going to do this 4 times as we bring this through, and you're just sewing through the tubelet, not through any of the 11 O's that are on the sides of it. One more, and sew through. I'm also sewing there through the first 11 that I just added in to kind of add that and make it have a nice closure. So you can see here it looks like one diamond sitting on top of another. I'm going to make this a little bit more stable and reinforce by going back through the 11 seed beads and the tubelet that I just did in this last pass. Now, if you want to, a different look for this component would be to go in and to add something to the middle of this tubelet design. I'm going to keep it nice and open, but that's certainly a possibility, and I'm excited to see what you want to add. In the middle here is about an 8mm space to help you out there. Once you're done reinforcing and going through those beads, I want you to come out through one of the tubelets. When you're out through the tubelet, you're going to basically downgrade. Go through the 11-0. That connects this blue tubelet to the blue tubelet below it. Sneak over and go through right underneath it, the 11, 8, 11, and bring your thread and needle out. This is going to be the way we get this into a nice diamond shape. From here, we need to do our connection point. Our bottom connection we're going to do first. You can see here it's open, kept this one open so you could see it, through a right angle weave technique, and then we are going to go in and connect along the top after the next box is built. So coming out here, we're going to add an 8, 11, 8, 11, 8, and go back through. So my thread is currently exiting through the 11-0 seed bead, add an 8, 11, 8, 11, 8, and then sew back through the thread that the beads that your thread is currently coming out of. That is your right angle weave connection that's going to get us ready to build our next box. Bringing that view a little closer, we are going to start on our next box unit, that next little diamond. So we're coming out through those seed beads after adding that right angle weave section. You're going to sew through the 8-0 at the top, sew through the 11, 8, 11, and exit. We're going to repeat that initial little diamond of tubelet beads. This time we already have our first 11, 8, 11 on our needle and thread. So we're going to repeat, adding our tubelets with our 11s in between for a series of 4 tubelets. Once you have those on, you're going to make sure that you end with that 4th tublet. Push those all down next to your area here. And we're going to get ready to connect it to the piece, going through, once again, that 11, 8, 11 that our thread is currently coming out of. As we bring that around, that gets us our next little diamond section. From here, like we did previously, sew through the next tublet, 11, 8, 11, tublet, and 11, and bring your thread and needle out. Now we get to build our box on top. Again, 11 lighter tublet and 11. So back through the 11 tublet 11 that your thread is coming out of. And we're going to repeat this on the sides of all the tublet beads. Sewing through the next 8, 11, tublet 11, bring our thread and needle out, and adding that second layer of our box with the 11s on each side, sewing back through the 11, tublet 11. Round that corner, go in here, and when you're coming out near that connection point, don't forget to sew through that 11, just like we did with all of the previous ones. Now this tublet in particular, because it's right next to the connection, might already sit towards the center rather than push back along the outer edge like these other beads. Don't worry about that. It's going to go there eventually anyway. Once you're past that connection point, spin around and proceed on like normal. We'll get this 4th one on here. And then just like we did previously, we're going to sew back up into the tublet bead that we're just adding now, connecting along the top with an 11-0. Going back through the 11 you just added, back through the tubelet you just added, and that gets your thread and needle back up towards the top. Spin around, connecting all of these tubelets with an 11-0 in between, and then I'll show you how we're going to do that second connection point, which sits right above the first along the two pieces. As you're going through the top and reinforcing after putting an 11-0 between each of the tubelets, as you can see, we're just repeating the exact same thing over and over to make our little diamonds here. We're going to get ready to connect along the top as well. This is great because it adds stability and that 3D look to the bracelet versus it kind of just hanging out here by itself. This really adds that nice stability and that look to it. So coming out of the last 11-0 that sits directly across on the point from our previous diamond, I want you to add an 11 and an 8 and another 11. I'm going over to the other side here and I'm going to catch on to the 11 that sits on the top of the diamond of the previous unit. So 11, 8, 11, sewing through because my thread's coming out towards the top, sewing from the top down through the 11 that sits on the opposite connection point. Coming out that 11, add one more 11. So back up through the 8mm bead that we just added. Add one more 11. Normally I would pull tight, but I want you to see this in action. And then my thread was coming out the top of the 11. Now I'm sewing from the bottom to the top of that same 11. Basically, we're going down, around, and circling through. As you pull then, ready? We're going to do that nice pull. You get that nice little connection where it has the two seed beads that sit on the side. You can kind of peek and see the seed beads below it. From here, sew over through the next tubelet bead, through the 11, through the next tubelet, through the next 11, till once again we're on that corner bead. From here, sew down through the 11, and then sew over through the 11, 8, 11. From here, we are on repeat. So now we're going to go in again, and we are going to do our next bottom portion. Then we're going to add our beads on the top, form them together by adding an 11-0 between each of those tubelets, bringing it up towards the top, and then adding and connecting to the previous one. We have a bunch of sewing to do, and we're going to continue on with this Diamond Tubelet Bracelet. Once you get to the end of your bracelet, you're going to want to attach your clasp. Now, I've actually attached it already on the end here, and I've gone back to the starter side and taken off my stop bead with my thread coming out here at the end, like I would be getting ready to add another unit. You will most likely end up lengthwise with anywhere from 8 to 10, 9 being the average of your unit size. I have my thread coming out the last 11-0 seed bead. I've added 2 11s, then my clasp, then 2 more 11s to the end of my thread. I'm going to take the needle and go through the 11, 8, 11 at the end of the project. Again, just like I would be getting ready to add my little right angle weave connection point. Instead, we're adding just that little triangle of beads. Reinforce the edge here, the end here, going through the 11s, through the clasp. And once again, I don't worry about the end of the clasp because it has that soldered end. If you have something that isn't soldered and you're using something like DragonThread or other beading thread, you want to use a wire guard. With this one, you don't have to. You want to reinforce 2 to 3 times going through that end. Then what we're going to do is weave it back into the design, tie off the thread end, and then use our thread burner to go in. When I tie off the thread end here, my needle just hopped out a little bit. I'm going to add that needle back in, and I'll show you where I'm going to add that thread end. Let's see. So if your needle pops off, let me show you, this is a good way to go in, flatten out the end of your cord, add that needle back to it. And I'm actually recording this on Twitch live. And if you also have a needle that's bent up, don't be afraid to go in with your pliers and unbend that needle. Because sometimes when we get down to the end of the thread like this, it might get bent up a little bit. Here I am near one of my silver beads. I'm going to sew underneath the bridge thread, meaning the thread that connects those two beads together. Make a loop there. Hold that loop open a little bit. Sew through the loop once. Sew through that loop twice. Give a nice tight pull, and then knot should disappear in between those beads. If you want to then also, you can do that a second time, sewing along the project. Back again, coming out near one of the silver beads, doing that same knot, or just going right in, basically creating a balled end, balled up size of your thread to keep it from going through the next bead, burning it down right next to the bead so you don't see it. And that is the conclusion of you doing this diamond tube bracelet. So you can see I have it as a bracelet here, but I'm bending it to show you the versatility. But if you want to do this diamond tubelet bracelet, you can also do it as a necklace or even a pair of earrings, creating the connection points singularly so they dangle down, or in the middle like we've done in our two product samples. Thanks so much for joining me for this diamond tubelet bracelet. Remember, if you need any of those supplies, go ahead and look below the video and we will have those little links for it there. Also, thanks to the many Twitch viewers that were watching while recording this video. Remember, you can join into the Potomac Beads community by commenting on this video, checking us out on Facebook and on Twitch as well. Thanks so much for joining in and stay tuned for more inspirational designs.